Welcome to Nightmare365.
This is the center of weirdness for the entire planet.
There's tons of unsolved mysteries out there. Witches still exist.
What about monsters?
Do you believe in ghosts?
Bigfoot is not out there.
Bigfoot is definitely out there. UFOs are real.
UFOs might be real.
Do you believe in conspiracies?
I consider myself a conspiracy theorist.
I want to believe in all these case files.
Trust no one. The government lies to you.
We're just two brothers exploring the unexplained, mysterious, and spookiness that lives among us. Yo, what's going on, all you mystery seekers? Welcome to the center of weirdness known as Nightmare365 Radio. I'm Matt.
I'm Greg.
And today, this one's a tough one, man.
This one is a tough one.
And I put it off for a while.
You did.
I really did. I know this is one of the biggest ones you wanted to talk about.
Yes.
This is podcast 62, case file 62, talking about 9/11.
Yes.
But before we jump into the 9/11 conspiracies and everything, I do want to give a shout out to Emily on our Patreon page.
Womp, Emily.
Yeah, she's been a big supporter of ours. I just want to say, thank you very much. And it really does excite us to do even more with the show. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, Emily. And I also wanted to do kind of like a recap of shows because we've been getting a lot of feedback recently.
Mm-hmm, we have been.
Just on all this stuff, from our weekday weirds to our podcast and our videos on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed, Greg wants you to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Fucking subscribe.
Yeah, everybody's like, that was a big push, that video that you did.
Yeah.
We got a lot of people to subscribe. We went from like 250 to over 270 real quick.
Let's get that up over 300.
That'd be cool. That's the first step.
Just subscribe. You don't have to hit the bell. Just fucking subscribe. You don't have to ever look at it again. Who cares?
There you go. But on our last weekday weird that we did, the General Zod UFO.
Yes.
We had a comment basically saying, which we didn't touch on this, and I don't know why. I don't remember if we did. I went back and listened to it.
Okay.
And I didn't hear his comment. Unless we did, I missed it or, wasn't paying attention fully. But somebody was talking about, what if that UFO was a military drone of some sort?
It could be.
There was a lot of people that also said it did really look fake.
I mean, it did look fake, but whatever.
Yeah, so go watch the video on our YouTube channel. It's all there, so let us know what you think. And that was just someone that wrote in that said it could have been the military drone. So that was one of the recaps I want to do. So I think that would be kind of cool to go forward, just if we missed something or we didn't touch on anything or we didn't even think about like a drone, which I don't know why we didn't think about that. Like when they commented, I saw it on YouTube and I was like,
yeah, we always say government projects and stuff like that.
Yeah, we did say government projects on the show, so that could have been it. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that too. So we're opening up the Eerie Vault. This is not so much eerie. This is just a tough subject.
It's a conspiracy. Yeah,
really more of a conspiracy than anything else because, just like anything we talk about, and I mean, this is one of Greg's biggest things right here.
The government lies to you.
The government does lie to you, and I truly believe that.
Okay.
But, jumping into this, so I don't think there's a good way to start this off.
No, there really isn't.
Just because, everybody knows 9/11, and
it's
a touchy subject.
20 years next year.
Yeah. And to think about that, I just graduated high school, and I think this is one of the things, too, we wanted to start off and say.
Yeah, I was a sophomore in high school. I remember that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I remember I just started college at the community college here in our town.
BCC!
And, driving there, I remember Howard Stern was still on the radio and I was flipping through. There was all different stations that I was listening to.
Rat Rock.
Yeah, Rat Rock, a bunch of different things. And I remember as I'm driving there, the first plane hit the towers. And I just remember being like, oh, crap, that could have been
a bad accident.
Yeah, I just thought it was a little plane. I didn't think, and a lot of people that were reporting at the time were saying exactly that.
Well, yeah, because back in the 50s. Or the 20s. Empire State Building got hit by a little Cessna type aircraft.
Yeah. And so that's what people thought happened.
But it was a very clear day, though. I remember that.
Yeah, it was exactly like today
beautiful.
Outside. It really was. And I remember it was my second day of, I think I had class Monday, but it was on a Tuesday.
Yep.
And driving there, I remember getting to college, walking into the building, there was a lot of people crying. There was TVs on, and the lady said, like, there's no class today. Like, go home. And I remember coming home, and I was young enough and dumb enough, and I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I remember because we were so close, like, all the antennas were down, or I guess, like, you know, on the one tower, that's where a lot of stuff was fed out of from.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, most of the channels we couldn't get. So it was, like, really eerie. And we were so close. Like, the town that we lived in is right by the bay.
Well, yeah, that everyone takes the ferry over to New York City.
Yeah.
I think in our town alone, was it 37 or
37 people from our hometown,
yeah.
you know,
from our hometown.
In
like, because the ferry like leaves right from our town over there.
Yeah, and I mean, you could see it because I remember that day going over to the bay, like one of my favorite spots, the Spy House, and just watching.
Yeah, you could see it.
The smoke and just being like, holy shit! Like I couldn't comprehend, and I really didn't know like what to do. Like even thinking about like mom and dad, they were at work. You were in school. Like I debated on like, all right, I'm old enough. I'm like 18. Should I go pick up Greg? Like I don't.
Didn't you come pick me up though?
Yeah, I did eventually.
Yeah, because I called you, I think.
And it was one of those things where it's just like,
you had the red Saturn back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
The pre-Boomobile, but
yeah, I remember like throughout high school, like the day, like there were so many rumors because no one. I don't know, you're in school, like, well, yeah, there was no cell phones really back then. Like, there was no nothing. Like, I think the only TV was the video production, like, TV.
Well, yeah, they would.
Which they had it on.
Like, back in the day, they would just wheel TVs in to classrooms if you wanted to watch something. Now,
yeah, there really wasn't. Tablet. Yeah, there wasn't cable or anything like that, or the news. And I remember, like, there was rumors, like, the Pentagon was on fire, the White House and the Capitol were, like, on fire. Like, anything was possible that day.
Yeah, it did seem like that. There was a lot of chaos. Because I remember later in that day, we were so close, you could hear fighter jets, like, flying back and forth.
Yeah, and I remember the next morning, driving to school, you could smell it when you went outside.
I don't remember that.
I remember, like, when I went outside with Dad in the morning, it smelled like almost like a burnt, like a rubbery, like, fire smell.
Yeah, we're about an hour away, like car ride, so we're not far.
But it's like right across the bay, like not even 11 miles.
I mean, on clear days, you could see
everything
all the way up, like in New York. But yeah, this day definitely changed a lot of things.
Changed a lot, yeah.
And it changed our lives. I mean, we were like back in the day, like I was very big. I mean, I still am like a big patriot, like, oh, you know, United States, like waving the flags. I remember everybody's like, you know, buying flags, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember being like upset and like, oh, let's go get these fuckers, like I'll join, you know, whatever.
Yeah. And
then now looking at it and realizing a lot of things and growing older, I'm just like, shit, man.
Well, yeah, you don't really know.
Yeah. I'm sure there's tons of stories too, because there was a lot of people that we know, not like personally that we hung out with or like really came in direct contact with, that like lost their lives, but we know like people that did lose their lives through other people, or even like, you know, old substitute teachers, things like that. So it really did hit home, and there was a lot of people that I work with, you know, now, and then like even our parents, friends, and our friends' parents also just, you know, working in the city, and you just hear stories from them, and like, you know, thank God they were safe or not working near there or anything.
Yeah.
And I do have a friend that worked in building Tower 7, you know, that collapsed, and some of those things there. So it is a tough subject. I know there's a lot of people, and these are just our thoughts and our opinions that formulated over these last 20 years. And I really just want to say that, like, there's so much information on, like, any side. This is not something, because I know there's some people that are, like, probably, like, you know, don't touch this subject. I know there's a lot of people that are probably, you know, just watching videos. How many people, like, 9/11 truthers, you know, that are out there, and then, like, people filming them, and then they're filming other people, and they're, like, arguing, going back and forth. Sometimes there's a civil conversation, sometimes not. And I'm sure if we brought this topic up, like, right away, like, right after this happened.
Oh, yeah, people would go
nuts.
Like,
they would be like, yo, don't do this shit. But nowadays, I think it's a little different.
I think it's so. It's a little different. It's like 20 years ago, so it's a long time ago, man.
It really is, and I mean, we did the
Tunnel with the Tower, yeah.
Yeah, we did that run, and that was like really moving. And
yeah, it's an awesome run to do. Like if anyone's like ever interested, they have them all around the country, but like the one specifically in New York, there was a guy. His name was Steven Siller. He ran from like his firehouse in Brooklyn through the Battery Tunnel to the World Trade Center with like full uniform, full everything on. And now like they have like a foundation for him. They raise money so they could build like, people, even now like veterans, like housing and provide for their kids. Like the Jersey City cop who lost his life not too long ago, they paid off his mortgage for him, like that foundation. So like it's a great foundation. It's a great run. Like everyone's chanting USA in the tunnel.
Yeah, see, I felt weird. Like the first part of the run, when you run from Brooklyn through the Battery.
Sure.
It's like, all right, it's just a run. Like you're thinking about it, but it's like it doesn't hit you until you get out, man.
Yeah,
like
you see
it gave me like chills. Like you kind of like slow down and you're like, why the fuck am I running? Like, like I understand, but people are like clapping and everything. People are holding up, the banners of all the firefighters, all the police that lost their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so surreal. I still have the flag that I was carrying that day, like the little mini flag. It's in my garage. And I remember, carrying that from Brooklyn all the way and just seeing it, man, just doing that run and just saying like, shit, man, like I felt weird. I felt like I shouldn't, I don't know, like, because when I went out and, people are clapping, cheering, it's like.
Yeah, I'm just running, man.
Yeah, like.
You don't need to clap for me.
Right.
But I guess they're just clapping, like, because, like, you're raising money, you're raising awareness, I guess.
I guess. It was really cool, and I definitely, say we should do that again or something. But, again, these are just our theories. I want to touch a little thing on it, because I do, like, Greg always says, even in our intro, like...
The government lies to you.
I really, truly believe the government lies to us, and we see that on a daily basis all the time. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple things that I do want to bring up. I comb through documents. I comb through videos on YouTube, like Loose Change. You sent me a bunch of things from that documentary.
Mm-hmm.
I try to watch as much as I can, movies, talking about certain things.
Yeah, like Jesse Ventura had, like, a good thing, too, on... his book, it was like 63, I don't know, documents the government doesn't want you to know about.
Right.
Like that was a good book. He did a couple interviews about like those.
Sometimes he's crazy.
But
I do like his information and like where he's coming from, and like he's been on the inside. He was governor, so he knows some things. And when somebody like that kind of tells you something.
Well, all he said is like, I'm just presenting you the documents. You make it what you will.
And I don't know.
And he has his theories.
Yeah, and I don't know if like he has an agenda of just like selling books or anything, but I don't know. This one's tough too. There's a couple clips I do want to play during the show. I don't know if it's gonna get kicked off of YouTube, but just like there's so much, man. Like if you just want to read, like just type in 9/11 conspiracies. That's on Wikipedia. I mean, we can go through some of them. I think when we talked about doing this, like this episode, there's certain things that we do want to talk about. Like you can go to the Central Intelligence Agency's website, CIA.gov, and they have a bunch of classified or declassified documents that you could look at, like from the Freedom of Information Act, like the inspector's report of the counterterrorism central, like operations, and from August 2001, I read that. Like, there's a lot of documents. Like, just looking at some of how much you have to read, and like I didn't read them all. Like, I read them as much as I could.
Yeah,
like
then
19 pages, 15 pages, 81 pages, 490 pages.
It's a lot. And there's also like the FDNY released in 2005, and also like a couple of years later, like all the radio transmissions from like the firefighters who were actually in the towers and stuff. And that's like pretty eerie to listen to.
I know. I listened to a lot. Like there was only, when we're doing this research, like at night sometimes when I would watch videos, like after I was done reading.
You get sucked in, man.
I did get sucked in, but then there was a point where I'm like, all right, I don't know if I can watch this anymore.
Yeah.
Like it got too much, like listening to the radio transmissions in flights and like people talking about certain
Well, that's
things.
I don't know. We could touch on that. But Like, we're not disputing the fact that obviously, like, planes hit the World Trade Center.
It fucking happened.
It happened.
All right, if you want to say it is a conspiracy, right? Because it is, people did conspire to do this event, and it did happen.
Yep. Like, we're not disputing that fact. Like, it happened. You saw it. You saw it live on TV. Like, you can go watch it. Just type in World Trade Center.
I've been
9/11.
down at the World Trade Center. I saw, like the fountains that they made in their place. Like, it doesn't exist anymore.
That is like a cool memorial. If you go down, like, you could see like how they were built. Like,
Did you go in the museum?
Yep. Yeah.
Did it cost money?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Because I remember when I first went down there, and it was like there was a lot of construction still going on, like one of the pools or the retaining, whatever.
Well, yeah,
like
now it's all open now.
Yeah, that there was like a lot of stuff that you couldn't see that you could
yeah,
go
so
in.
you can go to the pools; they're all open.
Right,
and
I know
every
that.
tree has like a meaning.
Right,
like everything has a meaning. But to go down in like where like the World Trade Center, like underneath like the pools where they have like the old fire truck, that was parked underneath. World Trade Center, like all like the basement, the footings, how they secured like the two towers. They have like a bunch of like memorial stuff down there. It's actually really good.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a couple documentaries just on the constructions of the the towers, and granted, a lot of this stuff has been compiled over the years. Stuff we learned, stuff we read, stuff we watched. So it's not like we all watch. When we do this, usually we give ourselves like a 2-week window to do research as much as possible. And there's a lot of stuff we missed. That's why kind of we've been, said we're going to do like the recaps and everything. And I've also like tried to do a lot of Freedom of Information Acts, even from the archives.gov. Just go there and you can read tons of information there. They only have not as much as I think other places, or as much as they should have, but those are 2 good resources to go if you want to just start to like look into this conspiracy. So I don't know. We're not going to read any documents from that, but starting us off, like there's a couple things I really want to focus on, and I think we both agreed on it.
I think there's 3 main things that don't add up.
And I think, we should start off by playing this one clip. And this one clip was from a news report the day before 9/11. And it's just I'll link this one up in the show notes because I think this one is definitely interesting to see. And I don't know if this is going to get us kicked off or flagged or anything, but I'm still going to play it.
911. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on forests.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
My 03 budget calls for more than $48 billion in new defense spending.
That's a lot of
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
I want to let that sit in, and that's a very striking thing because I remember hearing about that, and I was not somebody that watched the news a lot as much as like I'm aware of it now.
Yeah.
And diving into it. Now it's a lot easier to find stuff.
That was the day before September 11th.
Yeah. He talks about 2.3 trillion. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories on just this alone, which pertains to the Pentagon. And they
yeah, because that exact where they keep the records, where they were going to look through the records, was where supposedly where the plane hit.
Yeah, Flight 77 hit the Pentagon. And so that raises a lot of flags. There's a lot of conspiracy things on it. Like, I didn't work in the Pentagon. I don't know. I couldn't find any documentation on if this is true or not, if it has anything to do. But I do remember this. It was a huge thing back in the day, like when this happened. And I'm kind of glad I found this video. But I'm going to definitely link this one up in the show notes for sure. I'll put this in like just to flag it so I can remember to put that in. But that was just interesting to me in itself. Like, and I think I want to talk about like Building 7 first, and then we're going to go into the Pentagon.
Okay.
So because I think there's more to the Pentagon. Maybe I'm wrong, but whatever. So Tower 7 is another thing that doesn't make sense to us.
Yeah.
In the whole grand scheme of things.
Like, if you look at the whole complex of how it was actually laid out, like where Tower 7 was in relation to the Twin Towers, it was about 300 yards north of, like, where the Twin Towers, like, stood.
Yeah, it's a 47 tall, like, story building in that complex.
Mm-hmm. And it did house, like, the CIA. They had a secret office there, the Secret Service, DEA, like a bunch of government agencies, as well as like the mayor's bunker,
right?
Emergency bunker.
Because I talked to a friend who actually worked in the building, and his story is crazy. I don't know if he wants me to share this, and I won't reveal his name, but I remember talking to him about before doing the show, and I was like, all right, I conspiracies, everything beside, like, what was that day like? And he said he remembers coming up like the escalator. He got off the path from New Jersey, coming up the path, and on the escalator, he goes, I didn't hear a noise. I didn't hear a bomb. I didn't hear the explosion. I didn't hear the plane hit. But people were like yelling, like, what the fuck was that? And he's coming up. He got outside, and he goes, he started walking to his building, and he worked in Tower 7. And he said, you know, he goes inside, and there was a lot of people that said, like, you know, we got to get the fuck out of here. And he was just like, it didn't really hit him, or it didn't, like, process at the time. He's like, I really don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And he was just saying that, all right, he went to his office, like, called his wife, you know, did his thing, and then, like, really didn't realize it. And then the women across the hall were watching, and then they heard, like, another explosion in the office. And then, like, he comes out, the women from the other side of the building come over, and he's telling me, he says, I don't know what I was thinking. He's like, all right, that was probably just a secondary explosion. Like, you know, don't worry about it, ladies. And they're like, another fucking plane just hit the fucking Trade Center. Like, what? We gotta get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And then he just said, like, that's when he said, like, all right, I gotta get the hell out of here. And then he just remembers just walking. And he just said he remembers just turning around, like, every so often. And then finally, when he turned around, he just saw the tower drop.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, like, that's when it, like, fucking hit him, like, hard. So we know somebody that worked in here, and he did tell us, you know, like, the same thing. It was part of the complex, and you could watch videos on this even after. There's, like, raw footage of people filming down there and getting as close as you can. And after the towers fell,
it took 6 hours or 5 hours. It
it's
didn't,
like total.
Yeah, well, it didn't come down till like 4:30 p.m.
And there's a lot of people, there's tons of people that talked about this on old talk radio. Like Rosie O'Donnell, like, talked about this on her thing, and she had Joe Rogan on and was talking to him, and, like, he was saying, this doesn't make sense to me. There is a news clip, which I'm not going to play for it. People could find it. There's a news clip where the woman was on national television.
Oh, yeah.
And she was saying, like, oh, it fell, and you could see it in the background.
Yeah, still standing.
And so was there a delay, like, in the news feed?
People think that they were like, taping that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, they were pre-taping that.
So there's a lot of conspiracies behind that, like, whole broadcast, where there's a British lady saying, like, oh, Tower 7 just fell, and you see it in the background. So I don't know if they were, like,
maybe misidentified another building, but, like, how could you? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of with that. Like, if you were just misidentifying something.
It's just amazing that I understand that, you know, it was in the same complex. The only reason it doesn't make sense to me, and you want to talk about fires, and you want to talk about what was in the basement with generators, all this other stuff. It was such massive fires. No other building collapsed like that.
Correct.
In the whole complex.
Yep. Like, if you look at, like, even the Marriott, there was a Marriott hotel in between the two towers at the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
When the first tower fell, it basically, like, sliced that in half, and, like, that building didn't catch on fire. That building didn't, like, totally collapse. Like, just half of it was still standing. Like, so there wasn't, like, a domino effect in that.
No, because,
you know, in the Marriott,
even the outer ring, there was an outer ring of buildings, like shops and all this other stuff that, like, almost surrounded the Twin Towers.
Yep.
And you see in videos,
like, half of the building's gone.
Yeah, some of the buildings, like the siding, everything's off, and then there's a lot of fires in those buildings. You could see it, like, windows are busted out.
Yeah, there is.
But they didn't collapse.
No, they didn't.
So, like, why? What was in Tower 7? Like, why did it collapse? Like, what else did they have?
Well,
like,
so, like, they said let me see if in the basement of Tower 7, there was the Saudi gold. There was, like, a bunch of, like, gold, like, reserves, as well as, like, Wall Street investigations going on, like about financial crimes.
Right.
And the one good article that I was reading was saying in the months and like weeks and even days and even that morning leading up to like the attacks, there was a lot of put option stocks on like Boeing, American Airlines, United, and what a put option is, like you basically predict that it's going to drop, like the price of the stock is going to drop. And like the day before 9/11, there was, I think it was like 14 times the daily average for like Boeing and American Airlines.
Yeah, see, that's where it gets tricky. And when you try to find documentation, because we're all about like proof here, and we try to do like, so this is stuff we've heard, but it's also stuff that we tried to look into, we try to prove, but then again, like, where does this stuff go? And like, who knows? Like, this is all from somebody that was in the know that kind of like leaked this information. Yeah, I'm like, I remember hearing about all that stuff, and I just like don't know.
Yeah, like the National, was it, Institute of Standards and Technology?
Yeah,
they did like a study about Tower 7.
Yes.
And how it collapsed.
Yeah, I do want to play a little bit of clip, and I'll also share this. I'm going to bookmark this as well in my notes. And they have this, and you can go watch this. It's only 3 minutes and 40 seconds on YouTube.
And if like you actually just like watch this, you'll believe like what they're like telling you happened.
All right, this doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to play a little bit of a clip to it if you want to listen to this as well, and just, I don't know if this is going to get us kicked off either, but so this is from what Greg just said, the Institute of Standards and Technology, and it just says like why the building fell.
New York City, 2001. No tall building had ever collapsed primarily due to fire. But that's exactly what investigators believe happened to the 47-story World Trade Center Building 7 on September 11th.
It does look like it was
According
demoed.
to a 3-year comprehensive building and fire safety investigation just completed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST.
World Trade Center 7 collapsed because of fires. We really have a new kind of progressive collapse that we have discovered here, which is a fire-induced progressive collapse.
Never happened in
fact,
history.
it's shown for the first time that fire can induce a progressive collapse.
NIST used detailed data describing the building and its contents to create the most complex computer simulation of a structure collapse ever made. Falling debris from Tower 1 started fires on 10 floors in Building 7. A break in the city water main from the collapse of the towers disabled sprinklers in the lower half of WTC 7, allowing fires on those floors to burn for 7 hours.
Okay, there was no jet fuel.
The NIST computer model was validated with evidence from videos, photos, witness accounts, and other data. It shows that heat from fires expanded long support beams, causing connections and floors to fail.
So you look at the floors failing here, and
I'm gonna skip
explosive charge that was capable of bringing down the critical column in the building. Had it occurred, we would have seen sound levels of 120 to 130 decibels about half a mile away. That would have been an incredibly loud sound, and that sound was not picked up by any of the videos or witnesses that we have talked to.
The team found that World Trade Center 7's design was generally consistent with the relevant building codes when it was built.
Our high-rise buildings in this country are very, very safe. Having a collapse of this nature is a very rare event.
Very rare. First one.
I'll leave that at that. And people could watch this. I'm going to link this one up in the show notes. It's not much longer. It's about a minute longer.
See, I don't know, don't understand about that is there was been, like, you can go back and look at numerous, like, fires in high-rise buildings. Like, the biggest one I can think of was in Morocco. I think it was in Morocco. It burned for 17 hours. It collapsed the top 10 floors of this building, but the whole building didn't collapse. So I'm not sure, like, and that was built around 1970s and 80s.
Yeah.
Just like this one was.
Yeah, this whole complex was. Yeah, this one doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't add up. And I don't care. Like, it's funny when you do pick out the words in their things. Like, oh, this is very rare.
Yeah, very rare.
This doesn't happen before. We found a new way a building can collapse.
Now, are you just finding a new way because you have to make, like, a narrative fit?
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm not like I'm not an engineer.
And how is a fire just start on like floor 7, 9, 8, 9, and 10? Like,
I mean, I buy like the fires, and I buy all that because
sure,
like,
you could see it.
You could watch everything around there, like kind of like the windows busted out, fires, falling debris. I get it. Half the time, when they talk about, and I don't even look at the World Trade Centers because I totally buy that and I
Sure,
get that because
yeah.
it's like, all right, there's 2 jets with fuel, and that kind of lights everything up on fire.
Yeah, well, yeah, like the World Trade Center makes sense, and it makes sense why the second one collapsed. Like where the second plane hit first,
Yeah.
is because it was lower.
Right.
So like, the more stress was put on that building because more floors were above like where the impact zone was. So that's why that one fell first. I get that. The second one fell.
I could even see the second one, like after the first one fell, like there's stuff at the ground that made it like insecure, that
Yep.
it started to like buckle. And I totally agree with that. But then when you see this building, and you also see other buildings in the surrounding area with just as much damage and
Or
just
if
as
not
much
more.
fire, like I don't know, and they all come back to say like, well, there was these generators in the basement, there was this in the basement, they had all this other stuff in this, that they housed extra fuel.
I get it, but fuel only burns so hot, and steel melts even weakens
Well, yeah, they're like,
at a temperature much higher than what fuel would burn.
right,
And let's say the fuel did burn
and
in
weaken
like
the
the
structure.
generator, but in the National Institute of Technology and Standards video, it showed that the top floors collapse first. The generators are in the bottom in the basement, so you would think the bottom would collapse first, but in their review it didn't.
No, yeah.
So
Yeah, and a lot of people, even in this own video, comments like, so this is the only case in history of mankind building collapsed by fire. Like,
and they did like, and one thing like you can point to is they did like export like all the steel, all the everything without testing it for explosive. That like the easiest thing you could do is just test it, and if it comes back no, then you're fine. Like why was in such a rush to get shipped off to like other countries?
Yeah, I don't know. And there's a lot of things too, even with the national, or even with the trade centers themselves, they talked about like thermite. Like that was a big thing in a lot of documentaries. A lot of people like speculate all this stuff. I don't know too much about it.
Sure.
Even reading it, like I understand it, but I don't.
It just melts the steel.
Right. I fully like, I really don't believe that this was like an inside job. I feel like I could see, Kennedy, all right, we're just killing one person.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like, you're taking down a lot of shit.
You are.
So it's like, all right, you're hitting a plane into the trade centers. You're hitting a plane into the Pentagon. You're also flying another plane that actually crash landed in Pennsylvania. So it's like, all right, you have 4 planes. Like if this was an inside job somehow, like
There had to be a lot of people in on it.
Right. So then that also raises some red flags to me. Like,
Sure.
how hasn't a lot of that information come out? Because then what are you going to say? Like, if me and you started this, and then we hired like 100 people to like help us do this,
Mm-hmm.
and then those 100 people, even if they told 2 people, like
Everyone would know.
think about that like mass trickle effect. So then are me and you going to go around now and start like killing all these hundreds of people? Like now, like, all right, they're connected to these people.
The only way you could make that work if it was like compartmentalized.
Yeah.
If like they only knew a certain thing.
Right, like you're going to the job site in the trade center to plant this, and
Yep.
you don't know what it is, but you think you're fixing a cable, but
Yep.
yet you're planting a bomb.
Yeah, you don't know. That could be a possibility, but and like even when people say, oh, they knew, they had advance warning
Yeah,
about it. They had, like, because there is intelligence that said, Bush, in August or July or August, got like word that Osama bin Laden was going to use planes to run into World Trade Center, and I'm sure he did. But like that stuff happens every single day.
no, it
Like
does.
there's threats every single day. There's this and that every single day. So like, if you took every one of those like as very credible, like you would never get anything done.
No, true. And
Um,
I'm sure they come with so much stuff. But I do want to point out the fact, and I do understand why people believe in these conspiracy theories.
Yeah, 100%.
And I understand because looking at it, and I'm not too sure if people are familiar with this, but all right, I don't know if anybody's heard of Operation Northwoods. And I always come back to this because it makes so much sense if you think about 9/11.
Correct.
All right, so in the late 50s, early 60s, we all know Castro, took power over Cuba in 1959. And with that, like the military, we're in the Cold War since, after World War II. There was a lot of stuff going on. Now listen to this. In Project or Operation Northwoods, and there's also a bunch of different things. And a lot of people speculate that this is what got Kennedy killed.
Sure, because he stopped it.
Right, because I'll read you just a part of Operation Northwoods. And this was signed off on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And
who was later fired by Kennedy.
Right, and this was in March 13th, 1962. So this was sent from the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the military-industrial complex, which everybody's scared of, again, with that whole...
The government lies to you.
Coming back to it. So Operation Northwoods proposed in creating public support for the war against Cuba by blaming it for terroristic acts, on United States citizens and government. To end, Operation Northwoods proposed, and they recommended in this report that was sent over, again, by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and this is proven because you could look it up in the Freedom of Information Act, they recommended doing hijacking, bombings, and then followed all this up with phony evidence that would, basically say the Cuban government
they wanted to, in Florida, they were going to drop off, like, U.S. soldiers, dress them up in like Cuban uniforms,
thinking about like
and then
the Tea Party,
attack like a base down there. They wanted to take a commercial airliner, paint it exactly of what it was,
and crash it,
drone fly it over the Atlantic Ocean and just blow it up. And then blame it on Cuba.
So think about that, and this is where I always say
it's 40 years before 9/11.
Right. In the 1960s, they were talking about drone flying planes.
Drone fly, yep.
And doing hijackings. And killing. They didn't mind about killing American citizens. They didn't mind doing some bombings. They didn't mind shooting up some people and doing all this fakery shit to start a war.
Yep.
I understand why people think 9/11 happened with drone airlines.
Which I don't think they did.
No. Like,
so let's just put that out there.
All right. If I want to say like what I truly believe,
sure.
I truly believe like they had inside information, because we can go back to say 1994 when they did the bombings.
1993.
Right? 93, 94.
93.
I think it was 94. I'll look it up. But anyway, in the early 90s, there was bombings in the World Trade Center already. So they already tried to
bring them down once.
Right. So,
which, like, that would have succeeded in toppling over. That would have probably created more lives lost than 9/11 if he actually put it underneath one of the support comms. The guy, so what happened with that and why that wasn't successful was the guy who drove the van was supposed to put it under one of the main support comms. Well, there was a car already parked there, so he couldn't. So he had to park it in like the middle, let's just say, of where the garage was. So that's why it didn't bring down anything.
Yeah, so like I get it and I understand. It's almost like going back to World War II when Pearl Harbor happened. They kind of knew something was going to happen, and either
they didn't know what, but yes.
Right. So I'm just saying, like,
but that was their into the war.
Could that have been a thing too? Could they have looked at it and said, like, all right, we have intelligence reports. They're definitely going to do this. They already tried it once. Yeah,
and even Dick Cheney had like a memo. I think it was the year prior in 2000 that was saying unless there's a catastrophic event, to gain public support, like basically like the military and everything was like downsizing,
Right. Same thing in like the 60s. And you could look at, the same thing with the Cuba project or Operation Mongoose. It's the same thing. Look at that, man. Just read that. I'll also link that up in the show notes too. But if people really want to like look into conspiracies, those two are from the early 60s.
Yeah, I mean, even look at like the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which got us into the Vietnam War. That turned out to be fake.
Yeah, so like I understand why people think like either the government let it happen, or the government knew about this, or the government actually planned it and did it themselves?
I don't think they planned it and did it themselves. They
then-
probably got intelligence that it was something was going to happen, and they didn't really stop it. Like, I mean, if you look at,
But then you can go back and say, like, all right, well, we know this is going to happen, and it seems like it's going to happen on a particular day.
sure,
And then we could say, like, that's where they started taking out all this stock information, all these people that were in the know. Like, all right,
yeah,
if I'm like Dick Cheney and he's an evil motherfucker, like, just look at some of the stuff that, he's done.
yeah,
And just say, like, all right, he kind of knew, let it happen. Or maybe he knew, right? And, like, Bush didn't, because then you could see Bush's face, like a lot of people say, like, when he was told.
yeah.
They're
You
like,
could see, and that was a real reaction.
yeah. So he was like, oh, shit. Like, what if our people already knew and they said, like, we're going to let this happen. You let this fucking shit happen. And then they tell him, and he's, like, thinking to himself, like, shit, they really fucking did this? Like, how the hell are we going to get out of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, but the only thing to counter, like, maybe the government, I don't think the government planned it, was the actor James Woods. You ever hear his story?
I don't know.
So James Woods, the actor,
Right.
he was on a flight in August. One of the same flights that got hijacked. They did a dry run of, like, what they were gonna do. Like, right after takeoff, they stood up. Like, the couple of them, like 3 or 4 of them, went to the front. One stood in the back, and, like, he was like, "Wow, that's really weird." He notified the FBI. FBI, like, questioned him. Was like, basically brushed it aside.
Yeah.
A month later, 9/11 happens.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting story if anyone wants to read that.
I'll have to look that up, because that really is, like, you imagine that you're on, like, the dry run.
He was.
And it's just fucking, how do you explain that? So, no, I totally get it. It's almost the same thing if we go back to, like, in the 60s again, if we want to talk about, like, JFK and the whole Lee Harvey Oswald. Like,
Sure.
a lot of people believe he was, like, he yelled it out, I'm a patsy. So what if these people were, like, in on something and they were just told, like, all right, this is your job. You're flying planes into this. And they were like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't wrap my head around, like, a suicide mission, but there's
Yeah,
people that believe that. And
I don't know. Getting back to, like, World Trade Center 7, it just looks too much like, if you ever look at, like, when they demolition, like,
Right.
Vegas, hotels, it looks exactly the same. It, like, buckles, like, right where they want it to, and just implodes in on itself. Like, that's exactly what happens.
yeah, it doesn't make sense to me, man. That like is a big thing that doesn't make sense to me. Also, like, what people don't talk about, which it kind of goes along with my, like, next theory of what happened with the Pentagon, but Flight 93.
Yeah, well, I did want to touch on that. The phone calls, all the phone calls that were made
Yeah.
from people's cell phones. That doesn't happen. There was a scientist or a professor from, I'm not sure where, in a Cessna, went up to 8,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 12,000 feet, all the way up to 30,000 feet, cruising altitude of, like, the 757.
Yeah.
Tried to make a phone call, and he, like, listed the probability. And it was like the best probability he had was at 8,000 feet, and it was a 3% chance of actually connecting.
And this is before, like, other technology, like nowadays.
Yep, before other technology. So, like, I don't think those phone calls could have happened. And what they talked about was the artificial voice technology. Like, they had that back then.
Right.
Because they used it, like, I don't know, they did, like, Donald Rumsfeld, George Bush. They did all that. All they needed was, like, a 10-sentence little monologue from somebody. And what I did find weird in one of those phone calls, was it Beeman?
I don't remember.
The one on 93 where he said, "Let's roll."
Yeah.
That guy. Well, he called his mom. And do you ever call mom and be like, "Hey, it's Matt, like, your last name"? Like, why would you give the last name to your mom? That was the only thing that didn't make sense to me.
I do have a story, like, totally off the topic. I remember we were at the movies back, I think it was middle school, early high school. I can't remember exactly, but he, one of our friends, him, Chris, called his mom Collect. You know how you would call Collect?
Yeah.
And everything, and say your name. He said his full name. Like, "Hey, Mom, it's blah, blah, blah. Come pick me up." It's like, what?
Yeah, why would you say your full name?
Yeah. So, I mean, people do it. I don't know. But, Yeah, the Flight 93.
Yeah, Todd Beamer.
Let's roll.
Yeah, let's roll. He called his mom and said, "Hi, this is Todd Beamer." Why? Like, that's weird.
Especially with what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, you would be a little bit more frantic. Like, yo, mom, like, something's about to go down.
Like,
I love you.
If I call mom, I'm like, "Hey, mom," like, even if they think it's me or you, they know it's one of us.
Right.
Like,
"Hey, mom, it's Greg Douglas. How are you today?"
Yeah, like, that was the only thing that's weird.
I think that thing was shot down.
Yeah, I mean, well, another thing, too, about this whole day, there was a white plane seen over New York City, the Pentagon, the White House, and then in Shanksville. So, I think the one that was seen over New York City and even in Washington, D.C. was the Doomsday Plane, if you ever look at that.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
So it's like a 747. It's white. It has like a huge antenna on top of it. It's a Doomsday Plane. It could stay up for, days on end. So I think that's what people saw that. But I do think 93 was shot down.
I do too. I really believe it in my heart of hearts. Like, because isn't there technology on a plane, even if they did take back the cabin?
Mm-hmm. You could fly. Yeah, they could fly it. Yeah,
like you could say like
you could put it on autopilot, and then like you contact air traffic control,
and I mean
they put it on this setting, a certain setting, and it will head wherever you want it to go, and it will actually land itself.
And I know they did say like what was the report? I think the report was like they tried to take over the plane, but they didn't fully take it over, and they just nosedived.
Yeah, they nosedived it. That's what they said. Yeah,
yeah, it's like the report. So
I mean,
I don't know if you were
even when like they released the cockpit recorder to the families, the last 3 minutes of the recording was blanked out.
Yeah, see,
so they couldn't tell, and they had to sign like non-disclosure agreements of
which is funny as shit. Like why?
Well, see, that's where like the conspiracy theories ramp up.
Right.
Because why would you want to keep everything so secretive?
Yeah, it happened, man.
Like it happened, yeah. And even if these people did take back the plane, wouldn't you want them to hear that?
Yes.
Take back the last 3 minutes, and then you could just be like, they're heroes. Like who cares? Who cares what else was on there? So I do believe that one was shot down.
I totally agree. Like it was definitely shot down.
Like even let's say hypothetically they tried to take back the plane. Like the fighter pilot's not going to know that.
No.
So of course they're going to just shoot it down.
Right.
Like they thought it was going to either the Capitol or the White House.
And they did have permission that day to shoot down any plane that would not respond back to them.
Correct.
So, but that's again, if you took over a plane.
They have that now too.
Right. If you took over a plane and then you got it back from these hijackers, whatever you did they kill these hijackers? Like, do we know? Like, and then I would have got on the radio and be like, yo, we got the plane back. We got the plane back. What the fuck do I do?
Yeah.
And then they would have heard that. They would have radioed back to somebody. I know there was a lot of chaos going on.
Sure.
But I definitely think that plane was shot down.
Yeah, like even the plane that hit, I think, one of the World Trade Centers, they had a fighter jet. They didn't have any missiles on it. The guy was just ready. And there's an interview. There's a good interview with them. And they said, yeah, we're just going to run into the plane. And that's it. Like, that would suck, but... I mean, to save how many lives?
Yeah, that would have been weird too. Like if
just seeing that.
Well, this would have proven a lot of factors. Like, and this is just going back. Like, all right, if the first plane did hit and the second plane, the fighter jets ran into it and exploded that, and yes, they lost their lives and people on the plane lost their lives, and then who knows where they would have hit if it was over the bay or anywhere. But what if then the tower that didn't get hit also collapsed?
There's no way.
But I'm saying, like, if one tower was standing, that would be weird as shit.
It would. Well, we have that now.
But then true. But then if one tower did not get hit because of that, say if that act did play out,
sure,
and then that tower also fell, that would open up a lot more conspiracies.
Yeah, that would.
But yeah, that one doesn't make sense. But what I really want to get into is the whole Pentagon. All right, and we can look at so many documentations, and we'll play a clip from Loose Change because I think we agree with a lot of stuff that they were saying too. And I did find an article too from Popular Mechanics that came out this year, and they talk about, and they're still debunking the myths about 9/11 attack on the Pentagon, which I didn't think it was a great article because they didn't really go into a lot of detail. It went to one of those things where it's just like, all right, they talk about where, what was it says? Like, all right, here's a big thing, right? Big plane, small holes. And the claim is that there's 2 holes that were visible in the Pentagon immediately after the attack of a 75-foot wide entry hole in the building. Exterior of the wall, 16 feet wide. That hole was found in the C ring. So there's different rings to the Pentagon.
Yeah, there's like a A, B, C, D,
right.
and E ring.
Yeah, and looking at, because it is that shape.
Yeah.
And they have, all those different things. So they say like, all right, well, the Boeing 757, the plane, how does a 125 foot wide and 150 feet long plane hit this and then cause such a small hole?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like the debunker's fact, when the flight hit it, the Pentagon exterior wall E-ring created, approximately 75 foot wide, according to, the whole report that was done. The exterior facade collapsed 20 minutes later after impact, but they don't give you any information.
Sure.
Like in this article, and I'm like, all right, well, give me information of why. And then they said, well, like the Pentagon's load-bearing columns. They talked about the load-bearing columns. Isn't that the same thing you find in the Trade Center?
Yeah.
You saw the fucking wings in the Trade Center.
You did, yeah.
So they have, but this was concrete reinforced.
Well, the only thing about the World Trade Center, right, is it was constructed, like the main supports were the elevator shafts, and that was at the building's core.
Right.
Like the outside facade was just a facade, basically, of windows and like just metal.
I get it, but the steel beams were the same thing. Because in like the whole construction, yes, it was that inner core that was its main strength.
Yep.
And like most other buildings, they said at the time were, constructed with a lot of other cores in that like main building area, but they wanted a wide open feel.
Yeah, they wanted the wide open office space.
And then so like on the outside, the structure was also able to withstand, like an impact.
Yeah,
from like a plane, which it did.
It did, yeah. Like it was built the specifications back in the day of like the largest aircraft liner in the 70s. Like obviously they gotten bigger since then, but yeah, that the buildings
it did withstand.
It did
the impact, so it did its job.
It did its job.
But it's the same thing like this. All right, so they kept saying like the reinforced concrete structure and the way it was engineered, like it would just disintegrate everything.
See, and like what I don't understand, it said one wing hit the ground first. Well, you don't see like in any of the photos.
That's my biggest thing.
In any of the photos, you don't see any debris or any like marks from a plane hitting
the ground
prior to hitting the building.
Yeah, this one doesn't make sense to me, and no one can tell me otherwise that this makes sense, because I'm looking at pictures taken that day, and we can see the ground. There's no skid marks. The buildings in front of the fucking Pentagon have not been hit.
Yeah, and like another thing too is where the tail section would be, the up tail section, as well as the wings, didn't create any holes whatsoever. So would they just disintegrate because you don't see them?
That's pretty much what they're saying.
And then the 2 engines that are on the wings, okay, would have left holes as well. So unless they were perfectly placed through one of those 2, like on those windows, they didn't find any of the engines.
Yeah, and when they talk about like debris, like there's so many different things in this article, like you could really read. This article wasn't that big, all right? I think they did have one about the engines.
Like they did find one engine.
All right, conspiracy theorists incite that there was no plane wreckage at the Pentagon. In reality, Boeing 757 was never found. Claims from pentagonstrike.co.uk, which question what really did hit the Pentagon. And then here we go. Fact. Blast expert, blah, 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 whatever his name is. I'm not going to read it, whatever. The first structural engineer to arrive at the Pentagon after the crash helped coordinate, emergency response. It was absolutely a plane. I'll tell you why. And then he goes on to say, I saw marks of a plane wing on the face of the building. I picked up parts of the plane with airline markings on them. I held them in my hand, blah, blah, blah. So we just have one guy's account from this article that he saw a plane. So we have to go on that. But look at this picture.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
There is debris of what looks like a plane, but
it's not charred or it's not anything. Like it's just weird.
Yeah, like here's another example that I could say to you. Look at I'll pull this up. What was it?
There was like electrical
Flight 93.
No, that's the 93. That's in Pennsylvania.
No, I know. But like, all right, look at this.
Oh, like the impact of the ground where the wings are?
Yeah. And granted, this just hit the ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
It did look like it nosedived into the ground.
Right. But look at the debris field. You know what you have? Like, even look at the memorial that they have. And I know it's not exactly like where it was.
Sure.
But just look at some of the debris field. Even if you want to say it just impact the ground, like head on.
Correct.
There's still like enough of debris spread all over the place. So my only thing is, how does this, like, just looking at this picture that we have up on our screen here, the Pentagon, this one's called, I could post this link too.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at...
This plane didn't come nosedive.
No, it didn't.
All right? Because that's what the claims, they did claim, like, it came over the freeway. What's that, the freeway that's right there?
91.
Is that 1?
91.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, there is pictures, which we can see, of a car, like, kind of busted out, and, like, some light bulbs that are knocked down.
But see, like...
That's the only thing that we see.
So if you ever, like, watch, like, if a plane, like, hits light poles, the wing breaks off, right? Because, and if anyone, like, knows anything about planes, like, the outer skin of an aircraft is only about a millimeter thick.
So it's like the Statue of Liberty.
It's basically like a soda can.
Yeah.
And people... And, like, people are like, oh, no, I go into planes all the time and look at the doors. Well, I think that's for effect, number one. Like, they don't want you to know how thin the actual plane skin is. It's just thick enough so they can pressurize the aircraft, right?
Yeah.
So if you hit a light post, that's going to break off.
Yeah, the thing that doesn't get me, like, there's no trail.
There's none.
You can't tell me. Like, you cannot tell me. Like, I'm looking at pictures, and I've seen pictures throughout 20 years of my existence and, like, looking into this, and this is the only thing that doesn't make sense to me. You can see from the picture that we have and multiple other pictures, not just one, not just two. We're going to go hundreds of pictures that we can find from National Geographics, from, what's this one that we're looking at, from WKAR. There is no debris. So you're telling me this plane hit. How did it fucking hit?
Well, another thing that doesn't make sense is if you look back on, like, the flight tracker and you talk to some pilots, the bank that he made, it was like a 330-degree, like, nosedive turn. They said that the engine would stall. It's called, like, a mid-air stall or an engine stall. It's called something.
Yeah.
But they said there was no way you can make that possible turn.
Even with that, like, I'll still come back to, there's no skid marks. So you're telling me this plane hit, like, perfect. Like, right on the thing, and then it just disintegrated.
That's what they say.
There's no, like, look at all the stuff that's in, there's a helipad that's in front where this hit. All right, then they have emergency vehicles. There's nothing on that besides emergency vehicles. There's, like, a little walkway. I don't know.
There's like electrical spools.
Yeah, I don't know what, like, even getting up close. And when they have up close after the collapse, when this is when the roof collapsed, I'm not even talking about the building.
Yeah.
You're telling me this, like, was what? Like 2 stories off the ground?
Yeah.
And it didn't make any skid mark.
Nope.
There's no debris anywhere. So this went all through the building and disintegrated. You could see from 9/11 when they hit the trade centers.
Yeah,
you could see tires.
Yeah, there was plane parts like blocks away.
Right.
And that went through a building.
Right. And exactly, that went through a fucking building.
Yep.
And this one went through a building per se too that was reinforced. Like, so here's my counter argument to them. This building's so reinforced that it would disintegrate everything that, like, touched it. So if a plane's coming in at 500 knots or whatever it
Miles
was.
per hour.
Yeah, well, they talk about knots in the thing. That's all I kept hearing. And I'm just saying, if a thing came into this and hit it, and it didn't penetrate all the way, and it only got to the C ring, so it went from E, D to C, and it didn't get any further, there's no debris on the other side that we could see of, and there's no debris, in front of the building. Where the fuck did that go? It just disintegrated?
That's what they said, yeah.
So one of the things I really started thinking about is, could this have happened? just like our thing where we talked about where we think Flight 93 was shot down.
Okay.
Could they have shot this plane down, but also shot like another missile, and the missile fucking hit the Pentagon, and they just wanted to say like,
no,
that never happened.
Then where was the plane shot down then?
Like right before impact. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Because then you would have a debris field.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't add up. Like
no, it doesn't add up. And like even like the videos that they released, like the 2-second,
that got me like angry because they did
like
show that,
like the parking gate,
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up that video because I do have that.
Yeah, like the 2-second video of like the parking gate. You had numerous businesses that, and they like even said the Marriott across the street or the Sheraton across the street, and even the gas station across the street had video like pointing in that direction. So if you want to just like basically, excuse me, if you want to basically just like stop all the conspiracy theories, just release those videos of actually the plane coming into the frame and hitting the Pentagon.
Yeah,
like you could stop that. Like
Yeah, we're watching the
security footage.
Yeah, from the Pentagon that was released. And the guy at the end was saying the same thing. Like, we want to put to rest all those conspiracy theorists, so we're releasing the video. And granted, this is not like a regular video.
Sure, it takes like every couple seconds,
right.
which is fine. But you have other businesses around that area, which the FBI came like, a couple minutes later and confiscated all those videotapes.
It's just interesting to see this because you see something like when they slow it down too, like in this video that we have that we're watching of the security, you see like they do pause
flash,
and you do see some like white object, but you can't like and if that's true, like this is what I want to also point out, like if that's true, if it's pretty much touching the ground,
yes, you would have marks on the ground.
And why don't we have that?
You don't.
This is one thing that does not add up, and it's like I could put a table down, change my mind, because you're not going to. Like, this is the only thing.
The only thing that would change my mind is if you release the videos from basically the businesses around, the businesses around there.
Yeah.
And it clearly shows a plane.
Yeah, like, see, this is what gets me, because we're talking 20 years after the fact now.
Yep.
We're coming up on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And we still have, this is the only video that we have seen on the Pentagon getting hit.
Well, yeah, you're never going to see that.
So then this opens up the door for me.
See, that's the hotel I was talking about in between. That's the Marriott.
Oh, yeah.
See how it got ripped in half?
Yeah.
And it still stood. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's called the 9/11 Hotel. So if
that's actually a good documentary.
It's about 50 minutes. I'm not going to play it because I don't know. I haven't watched it.
Yes. So they basically talk about
Let me put that on my playlist.
I'll
save this for watch it later.
So they interviewed like 5 to 10 people,
yeah,
like some people that worked there, some of the guests that were staying in the hotel that day, and like they talked about how they got out and everything like that, and like how the hotel was just like sliced in half. The one guy was like, "Yeah, I usually take a swim around like 8 o'clock in the morning." He was like, "Thank God I didn't, because the pool just got sliced when like debris fell."
Damn.
Yeah. So it was a good like, and that was. Why it only was sliced in half. Half of the floor was reinforced because of the bombings in the 90s.
Yeah.
Was right underneath there.
Yeah, see, I don't know. This one.
Yeah, the Pentagon, like it looks like a missile.
It really does. Like even people in the comments, like just reading some of the comments in this, one of the most secured, guarded surveillance building in the world, yet 18 years and we still have one dodgy video from the security box. No planes. Where's the damage from, filming this video, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, I'm not surprised. This is definitely a cruise missile. Like, you can see a cruise missile. Like, I looked at the video, like, over and over again.
You can't see.
I couldn't tell, but, like...
Well, some of the people just want to see what they want to see.
Right, I get that. And I try to look at all angles, but, like, this... Like, look at how close the freeway is to the Pentagon here.
Sure.
Or whatever road this is. I don't know exactly what road. Like, let me... You know what I could do? I'm going to pull up on... Google Earth, like see, just like look at the Pentagon a little bit from the angle. God damn it!
Yeah, I mean,
can't type on the screen.
If you ever like been down there, it's, I don't know, I want to say like where the actual hit was to the freeway.
Yeah.
It's 50 yards maybe. And it's on a downward slope too. So they elevate like the freeway is kind of elevated a little bit from the Pentagon itself. So,
all right, I'm pulling up the Google image earth of it. So it's South Washington Boulevard, that's right there, and then 9/11 Memorial's right there. So I'll look into it a little bit more, see if we can go like higher on this.
Yeah, so 395.
395 is the main.
Yep, 395.
I like how
is the main. I want to say it came in from this direction over
it did,
over this
because you could see where the memorial is.
Yeah, that's
So yeah, it came over South Washington Boulevard, or 27, and it struck the building there. And let's see if we can get like different views, like street views and all that stuff. Pulling this up. Yeah, because you could see where this is where the helipad was.
Yep.
So where the fuck, if this plane came down the way that they said it did, like there's no, besides like light post and a couple cars, there's no skid marks. Like you're telling me this thing flew perfectly over this, highway into like not, I mean, this is like talking about fitting something in a very, very small window.
Yeah.
Like even this grassy area that is now the National 9/11 Pentagon Memorial.
Like I don't think you could do this even with like a little Cessna.
Like,
and the 757 is a big plane.
Yeah, is there a way we could tell like how far something is from like the Washington Boulevard to the actual building? It's probably the smallest. Yeah, I would say that's the closest you can get to the Pentagon without actually being in the Pentagon parking lot or surrounding area. And they fit it perfectly.
Yeah.
In there without any skid marks, because there's no skid marks. So you can't, like, if people show me the debris with, the light post fell.
See, but what I don't understand is the light posts are standing there.
Right, in this picture, you can see that.
So, like, and you did see other pictures where some of the light posts were taken down, but, like, some of them weren't. I don't know. This one, I think this one's the whole, like, where the Tower 7 and the Pentagon and the cell phone calls are where the conspiracy theories lie.
Like, look at that. Look at this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this picture is from MSN.com, rare photos of 9/11 Pentagon wreckage. Mm-hmm. And you can clearly see, like, there's a lot of fires in this whole outer ring.
Sure.
So
which is understandable. Right. I mean, if something happened, something did happen.
The outer ring is all on fire. E-ring. D-ring doesn't look like anything from the top.
No.
Neither does C-ring. All right? So you're telling me that nothing else is burning. Like, all this jet fuel that they say. Like, this is where I start to, like, question everything about the official story. Even the Twin Towers.
Sure.
Even Tower 7. Even Shanksville. Because looking at these photos, you can't tell me, like, it was concrete reinforced. Like, all right, where's all the jet fuel? Where's all that spill?
Yeah.
If it's in the building, like, why isn't it more raging fires like it was at the, like the Twin Towers or Tower 7?
Yeah,
like, you could look at, like, there's not much that's damaged. Like, any photo that you look at, just E-ring is burnt.
Yeah, and then that's it, pretty much.
That's it.
Yeah, like
the E-ring collapsed. Nothing else.
The people at the Pentagon said they smelled like an explosive smell.
Right.
And like those guys are pretty well versed in like explosives and all that kind of stuff because they're in the military. So
right.
Cordite is what they smelled.
Cordite, yeah. I'll play a clip because it was from Loose Change and you did play it. I'll play a clip here. Here's another one from from ABC.
Mm-hmm. Look at those trees right there, too. That's a tight fit, man.
Like, just look at... I'm going to post this video. Like, I'm going to post a couple pictures. I guess I could. I could link this one up in the show notes because I definitely want to post pictures and get people's things. So I'll tag this one. But look at this picture itself. This picture, pictures tell 1,000 words.
Sure.
Here's one. They set up camp, so it's probably hours and hours after. You're telling me they cleaned up all this shit? Like, there's... Like, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Like right next to it, like a car's length, not even. There's no
like skid
mark, nothing.
But not even that. Like, where are the wings? That's my biggest thing. That's my biggest takeaway. I don't care about the skid marks. You could tell me.
Ooh, I care about them a lot.
I really don't. Where are the wings?
Yeah, this doesn't make sense.
And even if you tell me, like, it's reinforced concrete and the wings just, disintegrated to nothing?
Yeah. And if there were such raging fires in the Pentagon, like, the E-ring is the only thing. The E-ring left side. So would that be the north side or the south? Like,
that's the west side, pretty much.
Yeah, because that's over here.
Yeah, it's the west side.
That would be the west side?
Yeah.
So that's more towards, like, I would say what?
Arlington National Cemetery.
Yeah. But, like, even, like, you look at the roof, like, how much burnt is on that one side?
Mm-hmm. And nothing was there.
Nothing on the other side?
Correct.
So on the left-hand side, if we're looking at the Pentagon where it got hit, the left side is all burnt and charred. The right side seems pretty good.
Yeah, it does seem pretty good. Yeah, I mean, this is the one that I think makes it.
And this is why, like, when people talk about conspiracies, you know, this is, we're just looking at pictures right now, and here's an example. Like, if it came this way, which they said it did, like, we're looking at a picture now where you can kind of, it simulates the plane hitting it and how it hit it. I can't fathom. Yeah, like you said, like, where's the wings? You know,
and where are the engines? Where are the black boxes?
We're just looking at picture after picture. And here's another picture right here, which is this really good picture. And this is from Conspiracy Theories. And they said, like, just pointing out
the cameras on the
different
building.
cameras on the building. So right where it hit, supposedly, and you can see them from the video, like the pictures.
There is a camera.
There is 3 cameras right where it hits. Like, here's another close-up.
Yeah, there's a camera pretty much, like, directly above where it hit. And then on either side of the...
Yeah, there's 3 of them. I don't know. Is there any... Like, here's another simulation. I don't want to go to their website. I just want to see. Just showing you, like, the flight path. It just doesn't... Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I don't have an answer for this one, man.
Yeah, I don't have an answer either.
I really don't. I don't know what else we could say about it, but this one does not make sense to me.
No.
Like, here's another great picture. Like, even if you want to say these are the 2 flight paths.
See, look at that Sitco gas station. Gas stations always have cameras.
Right.
What? Just release that camera.
Yeah, just type in. All you have to do, like, this is what I typed in, and these are the pictures that we're looking at. Pentagon, 9/11, and then just hit images and scroll through the images. Yeah, and you could see a Sitco, and this was taken at 1:07 p.m. of that day, 9/11, and you could see how close it is.
Yeah.
I would love to, like, I mean, I know it's 20 years after the fact, but I would love to find somebody that was at that Sitco and just say,
what'd you see?
Hey, what'd you see? Did someone come in here? Did they take your videos? Did the men in black come in and say, give me all your goddamn videos? Did anybody else have videos? I wish we had the technology that we do now, because everybody has their phone. So then we could definitely get, like, live video from the scene, from somebody that was at the Sitco gas station that could have taken a picture. I mean, granted, we have millions of pictures that we look at. Like, any picture that we click on, there is no skid mark. There is no debris that we could physically see in this.
Yeah,
they just, like, take it out real quick.
No. I don't think you can't do that.
Oh man, this is where it gets me.
Yeah, it's tough.
This is where, like, the conspiracy theorists, even Loose Change, we'll play the clip. I think this is where you said it. They started talking about, like, the skid marks.
Yeah, they did.
So this is Loose Change, 2nd edition. This is found on YouTube, and let's listen to it.
Instead, it looked like this, without a single scratch on the lawn.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
4th, why is there absolutely no trace of Flight 77?
Yeah, there was nothing.
The official explanation is that the intense heat from the jet fuel vaporized the entire plane. Indeed, from these pictures, it seems that there is absolutely no trace of a Boeing 757.
They're right.
But if the fire was hot enough to incinerate a jumbo jet, then how can investigators identify 184 out of 189 people found at the Pentagon? The Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory, which was responsible...
I recommend people look at loose change if they want, because that's a conspiracy theorist side of 9/11.
Yeah, some of his stuff is good, and some of his stuff is, I don't agree with all of it.
Right. I'm the same way.
But yeah, some of that stuff, he talks about, the skid marks, the DNA, the documents that were found, if the plane did hit, but how did you find the passport if the heat was so intense that it incinerated the plane? I don't know, man.
Yeah, see, that's where, who comes out with this shit? And same thing going back to the gentleman that we saw from, what was it, NIST,
yeah.
Where he says, oh, it's very rare.
Yeah,
and
it's the only one.
Yeah, it's like, all right, well, it's very rare that this type of heat, or this type of accident collapses buildings. And yes, it's different, right? You're not it's not every day
a plane runs into a building.
Right.
Yep, I get it.
I understand that.
It's a very rare event.
I understand that, and it's like a different type of fire. But the same thing with this. If the towers got hit and there was such intense fire, and yes, we did have a collapse here, but a very small collapse compared to what the trade centers was. And where's most of the plane? You do see pictures, just there is scattered stuff. There is FBI pictures of American Airlines. You see this little part. All right, but then they said it was incinerated, and then they said, well, it blew up in the building, or there's all these different reports, but then they just show you this little fragments of evidence from the plane,
again, I think this all could be mitigated and it all could be washed away. Just release the data flight recorders.
It's been 20 years. What are you hiding?
Yeah, just release them.
Who are you protecting? Are you protecting Cheney? Are you protecting Bush? Are you protecting this is the stuff when we talk about government conspiracies, who are they protecting?
Yeah, this is how it starts. They withhold information,
And granted, but then again, who are you protecting? This is 20 years after the fact. We lost so many lives, and we just shown you, how close this is to the actual freeway, and just going on. What?
I'm just pointing out where it was.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Man. That's the only thing I would say. The black boxes, just release all of them.
Yeah, I'm just
What's the problem?
All right, so there's a DoubleTree that's over there. I think I stayed at that DoubleTree.
Yeah, we did. So this is where it is. There's a Sheridan.
I'll zoom in a little bit more.
There's a Sheridan over here.
So you have the cemetery, which has tons of cameras. The National Arlington Cemetery.
Yeah, you had the gas station. You had, there's a whole shopping center right here.
Right on the other side.
Right on the other side of the highway. Yeah.
That has a perfect view of where the plane hit. Where all, like you said, where are all these cameras? Where were the 3 cameras that were on that side of the building? Were they not working that day? There was I couldn't find any paperwork pertaining to a lot of this stuff. And then again, I'm sure people will, please send us, information. This is the stuff that...
Yeah, this is the only one that doesn't make sense,
It doesn't. I don't know.
It's sad.
It really is, man. It is tough.
It's a tragic day. It's sad. It's just... Yeah.
Yeah, again, we're just looking at more pictures because that's kind of what it is. And, the one article that you could look at it, I'm not gonna post this one from Popular Mechanics edition. This is from September 10th, 2019, where they debunked the myths about 9/11. But there's only one.
Yeah, there's only one.
2. Well, yeah, the debris 2. So there's only 2 myths that they debunked.
Sure.
So I would love to talk to them and say what have you found on cameras?
Yeah, because you could see there's the camera.
Yeah, you could see a camera in their article from Popular Mechanics, and this one's titled, if you want to look it up, because you can see it, and maybe I should post this one too, Debunking the Myths About 9/11 Attack on the Pentagon. Conspiracy theorists who doubt the facts about September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks didn't stop at the World Trade Center. Here we answer their claim about the attack of the Pentagon. And clearly from this, besides the video that's been posted, which, did I say? Yeah, I saved that video.
Yeah, you did.
But here in their video, in their article, you could see a helicopter, state police, and then on the left-hand side, on the top of the building, you could see a camera. Release that footage, man.
Yeah, and then just put everything to bed.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else is there to really cover. I mean, this has been one of our longer episodes, coming on like an hour and a half. But I think it's a subject that we wanted to take our time with.
Yeah, it's a tragic day. It's tragic what happened. But just release all the information. Like, it doesn't, it's not hurting anybody, like, or
20
doing
years
any
later.
good of holding on to it. Just release it, and then you could put all the conspiracy theories to rest.
Yeah, I think, like, going forward, we should definitely do a show on the Patriot Act, which I have in my notes, but I never we didn't touch on that.
Sure.
But like after 9/11, the Patriot Act,
Yeah.
you think it's a good thing, and then you look what's in that actual bill.
Some of it's good, some of it's not so good.
Right. So I definitely think we should touch on that, and I definitely think we should do a show on the whole Cold War project, or I keep saying project, Operation Northwoods.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Because going back to it, if you think 9/11 wasn't an inside job, but then, in 1962, they were doing or thinking about doing something very similar.
Yep.
It does make you think. So I don't know. I hope we did this justice in a way. Again, most of it's just our opinions, our feelings. Same thing with like Flight 93, just with the Pentagon. I mean, just from the evidence that we found, from the pictures alone, tell 1,000 words, like we said. So I don't know. Let us know. Ooh, yeah, so let us know your thoughts. And thanks for tuning into this episode from 9/11. This one is, it's really just tough. I really don't know how to say it otherwise, but support us on Patreon. We have a bunch of different tiers on Patreon, and thanks again to our patron Emily for really supporting us. What is that? Is that like the thing? Sorry about that music. The music was like a little rough, cut intro into this, but subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Greg's really pushing our YouTube, and he really wants it over 300. So if you want to see some of the video from this podcast, you can go look at it there and subscribe to us there. And also Nightmare365.com, where you can find all of our past shows, our shop page, anything else that pertains to us, our email address, P.O. box, and call into our show. We want to start sharing some more. We have one that's coming up on our Weekday Weird that we're going to share from a caller talking about some Bigfoot, that he wants to see more Bigfoot stuff. Like, we don't talk about it enough on our show. But so go over there, find all of our contact information, and the phone number 732-660-8893. And if you have a story that you want to share with us, or just some theories, anything, it's all right there. So until next time,
stay spooky.